Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
We're going to talk about an important topic, one which influences a lot of our conversations, and that is the topic of guilt and responsibility and making mistakes and all that. And that can be really like fueling instead of having a warm, heart-warming little fire, a campfire in our conversations where we get some metta and some support from each other. Guilt can be, or the feeling of guilt can be like that, which turns a small little fire into a large, consuming, quick explosion. Yeah. So let's have a good look at that. I'm very curious to explore that with you. So before that, you see the chat box as usual, and you're very much welcome to put your good mornings and your hellos to each other there to create the sense of, I'm sitting alone in front of this computer, but actually not really alone. There are at least 60 people joining this moment with me, shared experience, beautiful. And if you have questions, suggestions, anything you'd like to share during our session, anything you'd like us to reflect in the last part of our session today, please put it in there, probably some capital letters, so I know that I need to address this. And I'm happy to look into that with you later. I'm going to talk for about 15 to 20 minutes this morning, and then we go into a meditation, and afterwards there's time for sharing. Okay, great. Let's go and get started. So, as I said, today we're going to talk about guilt and making mistakes and, healthy and also healthy forms of understanding of responsibility. And they can really fuel our conflict and hurt in any form of communication. This is why I bring it up here. It's such an important thing we negotiate with guilt within our human conversations. I was just walking through the shops yesterday, and I thought also what a very human thing guilt and mistakes and responsibility is. I looked around, maybe you have an example, but I couldn't come up with an example for guilt, mistakes, and responsibility in nature. Yeah, there is no finger pointing. So maybe that is one of the reasons why we feel, a form of safety, a form of opening, a form of relaxation sometimes when you go into nature, because nature doesn't do that. Yeah? Nature doesn't point fingers and blame. Yeah. So what is this sense of guilt and this sense of blaming in a nutshell, so that we have something to work with? When I look into guilt, it's an assumption. Yeah, we're building on assumption that there is one single condition, one single cause for an unpleasant experience. Yeah. You did that. Yeah, you did that to me. That's the arrow of blame. Yeah, I did that to you. That's the arrow of self-blame. I did that to them. Yeah, and so on. So it's a single line is drawn between an unpleasant experience and the self. Yeah. And the assumption usually is that this one factor, this one person brought together the unpleasant experience. And we speak also about mistakes in that sense, and we speak about a sense of responsibility in that sense, where I say that's your responsibility, that I have had to go through this, that I had to experience this, etc., etc. And the second factor is, and that's important, that in order to solve the dukkha, in order to solve the unpleasantness of that situation, we focus in. We focus in on that one factor. We focus in on you. We focus in on me. We focus in on them, and so on, and try to change something there. A guilt-centered conversation can be heard when we listen to conversations around questions and themes like the following ones. Questions like, who did that? And whose fault is it? Or who is responsible for this? Like in business and in offices, we have a bit of a more professional language, which is just like wrapping wrapping the same content into different words, which we find more appropriate for the environment you're in. Who is responsible for this? Who should apologize or be punished? Sometimes that question gets asked, and sometimes this question gets thought. And in what way? What would be an appropriate way to punish them? And that is often a negotiation of guilt also within our hearts then. Who is the good guy and who is the bad guy in this situation? Yeah. Our sense of worthiness here, shame and guilt get entangled very closely. My goodness, my worth, my value gets negotiated, and in conversations, guilt-centered conversations, you can see a lot of people justifying and explaining themselves and doing everything to reestablish their sense of worthiness and good enoughness. So that can be another dynamic which we can see a lot. And back to my sense of my walk from yesterday, I was then thinking, why are we doing this? Yeah. Why are we talking so much about guilt and mistakes and responsibility? And my question was whether that has something to do with our human awareness that there is dukkha, meaning lots of unpleasant experiences in these words, minor ones like stubbing one's toe, and major ones like traumatic experiences, not for just one person, but for the many, like we see it a lot in the media these days. We're consciously in touch with dukkha. Yeah, we're aware of it, and we all have some tools to do something about it. Yeah. And that gives us some ability to actually, be with, do with, change. And that gives us some possibility for response, wise response, and some form of responsibility, activity, and so on. This is interesting. So on the other hand side of this, there is an assumption that we could do something about it. Now, we human beings, when we are in touch with dukkha, when we're unconsciously aware of some ouch, minor ouch, bigger ouch, what comes up is a reaction to that. Very, very natural. Yeah. You're touched by something unpleasant, you react to that. We wouldn't survive if we would be doing that. Yeah. And what comes up with it very naturally is an emotion. Yeah, to say, your heart mind is responding, calling the self to action by saying, ouch, ouch, ouch. And some anger comes up, or some fear comes up, some impulse to act comes up, or, if it feels like that's more in the playing field of the other, some blame, some anger, some finger pointing might come up. So some form of guilt is just a discharge of emotional note. I'm hurt. I'm confused. I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling fearful. And some emotion builds up. And where does this energy go? It goes through the finger, pointing at the other, saying, you did that to me. Yeah, very quickly. That can happen very quickly. I want to discharge the unpleasantness of the situation, and felt not able to hold that, at least for a moment, in compassion and look at it. It will go out as soon as I'm touched through the mouth into form of blame on the other. Yeah. So one form of one reason why we do this is it's emotional discharge, and can get very abusive. The second form is a way of thinking. There is dukkha in this word, and we live in an immensely complex world. We're talking about interdependence, and that really means that a zillion factors touch a zillion other factors, and it's a very complex world. We see it in the media a lot, like the media or politicians are hankering after easy answers, because a lot of people have really a hard time, and I can fairly understand why, to live with this complex, global, everything is influencing everything world. Yeah. So there is a human tendency to reduce complexity. Yeah, let's make it easier. Let's make it, because if it's easier, it gets handleable. Yeah, within the web of complexity, we sometimes feel, I can't move. I don't even know where to move. Yeah. And blaming someone is a form of reducing the complexity of the situation. I'm reducing all the factors which influence the situation to one. Yeah. You, you are the factor. We're going to concentrate on you. And it would be wonderful if that would work. Yeah, because then we could make that one person stop doing what they're doing and the could go. Yeah, easy like that. So one reason why we turn to blame is because it reduces the complexity to something simple we can gain back control over and do something about it. And the same human tendency for simplicity I find in our urge for retribution. Yeah, that's the last reason I came up with, is to say when we're touched by dukkha, when there is something which hurts us, sometimes deeply, deeply, sometimes in a dramatic way, what there is also is some urge, some wish, some desire, some need for retribution, something which makes up for the suffering we get through. One human way to do that is through punishment. Yeah, because we think a lot of the time there's something very instinctive with us to say, well, if you go through punishment for the dukkha I receive, we're even. Yeah, it's a compensation for my pain. One knows from psychological studies that this hardly ever works, but anyways, this urge is there. Yeah, it's a compensation for pain sometimes. This blaming and punishing. And the other thing I see a lot in people is that they want acknowledgement for the pain, for the suffering, for the hardship they go through. They want it to be acknowledged and understood. Yeah, if you could understand what I'm going through, I have a feeling that this dukkha would get less. Sometimes you want that in a form of an apology. And I know people are waiting decades for an apology and it just never comes. And they never feel fully, never feel fully that dukkha acknowledged. Yeah, and that is painful. It's almost like we need the validation of the other to say, not only am I seeing this as painful, but you are seeing it as well. And then I can come to terms with it. And that's a form of a prison. Yeah. I'm depending on you to acknowledge my dukkha in order to move on. Yeah, all of these three things, I think the emotional discharge can have a high price in our relationships. The reduction of the complexity hardly ever gets the situation, and our urge for retribution either has a large cost as well, or is just not answered by the other. So, the closer we look at it, our strategies around blame and guilt and attacking are just not really working very well. Yeah, they're not just really working very well. It's not that they're evil or wrong, but the closer we look at it, it's just not working. Yeah. And they have also other than not working, they have a high price, which you just mentioned. Yes, as soon as we get into this conversation about the who did that, we forget about the why, about the what. Yeah. What has happened? Yeah. We forget the mess itself. Like the Buddha had a very lovely sutta where a man was hurt by an arrow, yeah, and that arrow was poisoned. And the good man refused that this arrow would be taken out of him before he knew, and the Buddha, kind of made a bit of a joke of it, said before the man knew who shot that arrow, where that person came from, what the bow was made of, what the feathers of the bow were made of, what would the bow was made of, and so on and so on and so on. And the Buddha said, before we could find out all those answers to the who, the man would be dead. And sometimes the feeling the same is true for guilt as well. We get into a whole long conversation about who did what and contributed what and whose responsibility is that, and the other starts to justify and defend themselves and attack back. But do you remember last Monday when you made that mistake? we forget the mess. We forget the mess of this situation, which needs addressing. Yeah. And we'll create a conversation of me against you, where any chance to learn something about what contributions are in the room actually gets lost. No one wants to admit a contribution. It's held against you. We are also creating a lot of strong emotions and reactivity. And you can imagine that if you are blamed, your sense of empathy is probably not in its best shape. You might feel some shame and have a strong reaction to that. You might want to avoid punishment and thus being not fully honest with the other. And you are probably busy restoring your self-image, yeah, to show the other or the world in general that you're not as bad as the blame suggests, so that we all can't turn towards what is really mattering. It's the ouch of that situation. Yeah. So let's potentially move forward a few ideas how we can come from a guilt-based, guilt-centered conversation towards something which I learned is a learning conversation. Yeah, from guilt towards ways of thinking and speaking in contributions. That was the Buddha's suggestion. His teaching on dependent arising. Guilt, like we said, is this single relationship between dukkha and the self. And the Buddha invited us, well, let's open that up. There are probably a lot of contributions to this situation. Yeah, there's that person and there's this person. And then there are also a couple of outer circumstances contributing to that. Factors from me, factors from you on the situation around that. Like, we need to shift Robin's birthday party. It's not, and he was so angry with me. That was children, yeah, not getting the complexity of the situation. How should they? They're growing into that. Throwing the arrows of blame at me, saying, "Mommy, that's so bad that you need to shift my birthday party. I'm so angry with you." I say, I can fully understand that, but have you looked at the weather outdoors? Like, not in my hand, not in his hand, outer circumstances, they play a role as well. So let's talk about and let's find out contributions to this situation. And that's where a realistic sense of who can hold responsibility for what comes into the dynamic. I like the word responsibility and like the word accountability, but before we put it into our mouths, can we almost think about what is so realistic? What is something realistic I can take care of and hold responsibility for? Certainly not the whole situation. Yeah, certainly not the whole outcome of a dynamic. Yeah, but what is it I can on a day-to-day basis take care of? And can we bring it back to a sense of we? Yeah, we are both in this boat. Yeah, we're both having influence and impact on this. So we need to have a conversation. If you want this dukkha to be gone, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But are you willing to look into more contributions than just mine? And the last part I add is then if we talk about guilt, it's very important to talk about the feeling behind the conversation. There is usually a very strong emotion. And sometimes when the arrows get thrown, it's very hard to hear these emotions. But maybe I can train myself a bit and say, wow, if you are dishing out blame like this, you're probably hurting a lot. Let us talk about that hurt. And maybe I need to kindly ask you to stop the planning so that I can listen to your hurt. I'm happy to do that, but you need to stop throwing arrows at me. So that was a very short introduction to guilt-centered speech. I'm curious to see how you respond to that, whether we should deepen that in an upcoming week. We'll see. But for now, we drop the words, okay? Everything is recorded. We can come back to it in the reflections. And now we're so in calmer hearts who have probably received one or more of these errors just within this week. Okay. Find yourself a posture and stretch out. Make yourself comfortable. You can stand up, you can lie down, you can move around in the room, especially if this topic is creating agitation, acceleration within you because you're so familiar with it right now. It might be a good idea to move in the beginning. And if it's just standing up and shifting from one leg to the other, you can do that sitting down as well. Maybe the invitation to all of us this morning is to gently rock and swing and sway into a position which feels appropriate. Our body is holding a lot of tension from bracing against harsh words, from getting ready to have conversations, meetings with those who do not feel fully safe with. So allow it to move and stretch a bit. And let's just listen inwards when the right time comes. And there is actually a need, a wish, a desire to say, okay, now more stillness, less doing would be great. And when you find eventually your stillness, or doesn't need to be perfect stillness, perfect silence. It might be very conducive to just open the body to sway and move in micro bits, not holding it fixed or frozen. And just for a moment, let's feel into how the body is during this morning. It's a workday morning. Many of you will have their jobs and commitments and appointments going. And just notice how the body is dealing with all that. Is there a readiness to go and get going? And how does that feel? Is there a bracing against anything which might come up today? Just like a readiness to get through with the bumps and the ouches which naturally occur over the course of a day. And how does that feel? And no need to change and soften that. First of all, let's notice it, respect it, acknowledge that the body is ready to be the vessel you need it to be, or it thinks it should be. And the other factor preparing for the day might be your thinking mind, your conceptual mind. There might be thoughts already running around to avoid pain, conflict, disharmony, make life a little more comfortable and safer. Or it might just be buzzing. It's on. And just acknowledging how much they work and how much they carry, how much they try to make life safer, more comfortable, manageable. Maybe a sense of compassion arises to say, oh, dear mind, dear body, that's quite a burden to carry. And let the lovely exhale be just an invitation to say, can you put one thing down, one tension, one piece of physical armor we do not need, something we can soften. The thought which pops up to say, I see that we could think about that, but actually put that down, not right now. And you might not be able to bring all of that activity to stillness, bring all the armor down. Body, heart, and mind are not fully trusting the situation, especially if there are dynamics in your life which are hard right now. And you can honor and respect that too. To say, yeah, I see that you think we need that right now. Okay. Maybe you can invite around that, beside that, above and below those tensions and activities, body, heart, and mind to soften. while we invite body, heart, and mind to soften like that, maybe you come into contact with your sensitivity, that which is touched by the behaviors, that which is touched by the dynamics of life, that which contracts and accelerates, that which freezes and heats up. If you like, put a hand on those body parts where you feel a physical resonance. Sometimes we say it's the heart, but it might be in the belly, it might be in the hand. That place which is sensitive to everything which happens to you, gets touched, is in contact. And if possible, if it's not too much, feel it out, be with it. No need to change it, no need to have solutions or answers. That's your chitta, your heart, mind this morning. If you like, see whether you can breathe in a way which is soothing to it, calming it, allowing it a bit more space. Your experience of your heart, mind, of chitta can be concrete or vague. It can change over time. And you will feel it when you bring up the pleasant and the not so pleasant situations of the last few days, and just notice what is touched, what is moved, what is sensitive to these experiences. What is sensitive if you take a caring, loving inhale? And the Buddha called our job, our practice, chitta bhavana, cultivation, care for this sensitivity, for the heart mind. To return and return and return, and to nourish, to soothe, to support, to warm up and cool down this inner sensitivity. So what could you do right now? What would be supportive? Maybe it's just listening. Maybe it's backing off a bit, not putting any pressure on it, not getting even too close on it. Maybe it's mixing your mindfulness, your awareness of it with a lot of kindness, curiosity, or compassion. Think, wow, you are quite agitated, contracted. Let me be present with you. And not only is there sensitivity, there is also a reaction. Our impulses to think and do and speak come out of this heart mind, the Buddha says. And those intentions, those potentials, they are the good, the bad, and the ugly. But a heart mind itself, it has no value, it has no rightness or wrongness within it. It just is. And it's our job to care for it. Soothe it, balance it out, expand it when it's contracted. A deep sense of loyalty. And just from taking care of this heart mind like this for a few minutes, like we just did together, just reflect for a moment what intentions, what reactions, responses are present right now. Any wish to approach your day, anything, any quality which you would like to bring into your day today. Potentially something shifts when we take care of our heart minds, practice Chitta Bhavana. Only you come back into your bodies, feel the fingers, feel the toes and the feet, and gently start moving again. Moving this body, stretching it out, yawning and sighing. It's like waking up again this morning.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.